back to Bills and Business, the podcast where we break down the policies and innovations shaping the Lone Star State's business and legislative landscape. I'm your host, Laura Carr, co-founder of USLege. Today, we're diving deep into how Texas can lead in two groundbreaking technologies, AI and blockchain. Joining us is Ben Bhatti, President, CEO, and founder of the Texas AI Association. Ben's been a long-leading voice for innovation, advancing both AI and blockchain policy in Texas to drive smart growth and transparency. Thank you so much for coming down and visiting with us, Ben. For those who don't know you, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
So Ben Bhatti, Texas AI Association, founder and CEO, born and raised in Dallas, grew up there, went to undergrad there, lived all over the U.S., Los Angeles, L.A., San Francisco, New York, Chicago, in and out a lot of those places, and worked there, Atlanta, all over Texas, and in and out of a number of different jobs, from everything from being a governor's advisor to now the lieutenant governor's advisor when he was a senator in education, to film producer, school teacher, just done a number of things, and really had just a great exposure to a number of different fields there.
So what made you want to start the Texas AI Association background, which is interesting because you have legislative and tech, which is something obviously I'm very into. So yeah, tell us how that came to be.
So I was kind of looking at the AI field developed from the Dallas Regional Chamber and as the AI expert there, and working with a number of big Fortune 500 and sort of seeing how they were using AI and how it was developing, and seeing that there wasn't a one-stop shop or go-to place that companies and people trusted to figure out where was they going to go get the best solution that was actually going to deliver a return on investment. And so seeing how AI products are being kind of dispersed and acquired and utilized in the marketplace, I knew that there was a need for companies to say, hey, I can come to this trusted company that has been in the space for years, knows how to integrate the technology in the right way in a very specific vertical, and is not trying to sell me everything in the kitchen sink, but really trying to sell me a solution that can actually solve a problem. And I think that's what's missing in the market. I think you have a large number of enterprise companies that are sort of able to pay for it, both the infrastructure and the solutions, and the integration aspect of it. And it's really leading the smaller companies behind. And I think the best way to level a playing field is to create the market conditions for everyone to be successful. So I think that's what we really want to do with this association through both community growth and then advocacy. So help grow the community of AI professionals and really help with business development of companies.
Very cool. And what are some of your top legislative priorities?
So this session, one of the biggest bills that we're kind of working on is getting across the board tax incentives for every single company that is like yourself, utilizing AI and bringing an AI solution. And then with your client base, those companies that want to experiment with a new technology, to try to use this technology, to see how they can case use it and figure out how they can get a return on investment for using those technologies is really what we're trying to promote. So you both have the integrating company and the company deploying the technology, and how do you figure out how do we feel like the best market condition is to create a structure by which if there's an ROI, there's an efficiency created to the data, to the company's integration of this new technology, be quantified through data acquisition of whatever vertical that technology has been integrated. You can show that it's producing a savings and you get the incentive. So I think that's one of the big key things I think is missing in the market right now, because the biggest companies that are flush with cash, that have the resources, are able to pay for, again, I think the resources, the infrastructure, and then both the solutions. It's going to leave a lot of companies unable to compete.
Absolutely. And you wrote an op-ed on blockchain and your vision for that, the future of Texas government. So hearing a lot of DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency similarities here, but what is your what are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. So I think you got to look at what our government has evolved into pretty much during my lifetime. A lot of it is really turned into a structure that's not really helping people, but it's sort of feeding its own self and not really meeting the needs of what it's intended to do. And so I think through transparency and through technology, you can create a system by which taxpayers can both see their dollars go through the system on chain, Technology is out there where we can show where your tax dollars, if you're a taxpaying citizen, you can get to see where your dollars are being dispersed. And then through that technology, you can split the way that you allocate the way that those dollars, your tax dollars, get dispersed through the system. And so one of the pieces of the legislation is to allow for the bureaucrat to do what the bureaucrat does the best, right? Take your tax dollars. And they get to do whatever they get to do with those dollars. But the other part of it is you get to get, as a taxpayer, get to control 50% of those dollars, and you get to allocate them on real problems that matter to you. And I think what that will do, it will create a number of great things in our society that we don't have right now. Right now, in politics and our systems, we have division. And I think if you have people focusing on problems that affect everyone around you in your community, that you'll start to break cracks. You'll have people on one side of the political spectrum and the other one working together to solve a problem that everyone faces in the community. And you start to really evolve past these silos that are creating dissension and non-unity in the United States, and really creating a culture where what do we call the United States now? It used to be saying the pledge or wearing the American flag. None of this stuff is uniting any longer. So how do we create a culture where we go back to it? And I think a lot of that culture got devolved because we are transferring that negative energy of our not anything working towards government. And I think that's because of lack of control, government not having the intentions of people. And through technology, again, transparency on the chain, once you have groups of communities focusing on problems, putting those problems on chain, every single politician from the federal level to your state politician to your local city council person, everyone gets to see that problem and gets to see how many people want to fix this problem. And then everybody gets to see which politicians are actually going to do the right things to solve those problems. I think what you'll see is a natural evolution of any sort of outside money that everyone wants to take out of the system. Let it be in the system. Let the market condition do what it needs to do. If the politician wants to clearly be influenced by money without actually helping their constituents, I think the system's going to vote them out. And I think that you'll see it clearly through data acquisition, that you can see that politician is not working for you, the person, or the people. And I think the market, no matter how much money you push in it, we saw it with the last election, the person that put the most money in the election didn't win. So I think if you start to really see that same thing, you're going to see the same evolution happen in the whole political system, where you will hold politicians accountable. No longer are we going to be stuck or beholden to the whims of a politician. Now we will be in control of the system and our.
So you believe that the transparency that you show through data, it's something that we're doing as well, would be an overall good for society?
I think anything that you can do to really break down a system as complicated as the legislative and the bureaucratic systems that are out there, to really show people how the sausage is made and how it works, is something that is beneficial to people really getting involved in elections. I think you're seeing more participation in different groups politically, simply because those policies and the current times of technology are going to affect them. You see a lot of people on both ends of the political spectrum in technology now getting interested in politics. Seeing Sam Altman literally be part of the transfer team, right, in San Francisco, because he has a little island that he should control, and he needs the policy and the politics of that island to ensure that he gets to do what he wants to do in the Bay Area. And then you also now have Elon on the other end, right, in DC, at the federal level, able to control federal purse strings and policies through rulemaking and all sorts of different things that they can do now on that end. And so what you keenly understand is that if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a technician, you're going to have to know policy. And you shouldn't be a billionaire with all the resources and all the mouths of lobbyists to get the information you need. The regular person on the street, and that was one of the things, and you know this, Laura, working in as a staffer, you're really tasked as a staffer, and I hope it's probably the same now, even with the evolution of politics, is to really help every single person that walks in the door, and trying to use the system in a way and in a manner that works for them. Because we all know how difficult it is, and you're like a person in a sinking ship trying to make sure the ship doesn't sink and helping the public. And the water is all the problems as it comes into that ship. And you're trying to help as many people as you can, and you're doing it with a really unfettered heart of just trying to help everyone that needs the help the most. The problem always is is how do you actually get the government that you're whatever little island of power that you're in charge with as an advisor, staffer, how do you get it to work for the people? You may be able to get it for the ones that complain, but how do you actually close the system? That's the hardest part. Unless you have 1,000 people like yourself that look at the world and the way you do it, and over time, and I don't care who you are, you work there long enough, you start seeing the whole system through different lenses. You start seeing it as vendettas rather than problem solving because people don't work right with you, and you carry that baggage through the whole process. So even if you're trying to problem solve, you're carrying a problem of like we did work together on this issue, whatever issue. So there's all this layers of relationship and everything. It's always funny. I was just talking to people in the hall. All those people I talked to were from different bills, different relationships, different offices. Well, governor's office, one from this group. So you had all these different experiences in life, and now they're all doing something different, and so am I. And you kind of look at all those things and why did you move from here to here? And inevitably, I'll tell you, most of those staffers, and you know this even with your work, I think with TexasBusiness, which I think is great. I think what you guys are advocating for and what you're bringing to the market is something that's very necessary because it really brings the ability to the common person to look at policy, to look at the legislature in a way that makes it simple. And I think that's the thing that technology brings is transparency, simplicity, talking to people in their language. I think when you create mechanisms that convey information in a dynamic way, in which I think your technology does to help people understand policy, it really makes the whole process less complicated. The process is complicated because of people. And if you put transparency in there with technologies like TexasBusiness or having something on blockchain where you can see it, it creates the access to both information, and then it gives people the best ways to make decisions in the vote or make advice on how they participate in government. And you can see where they can fit in, plug in, and actually change the world that they want to make.
Absolutely. You highlighted this, but you said a lot of people in tech should be focused on policy. How many of the organizations you're working with are focused on policy, and or if they're not, do you think should be?
So I would say every single one. I think you look at the future of what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years, and you sort of seeing the evolution in the last 3 really very quickly. That every single corporation, every single company, every single startup is going to be a tech company. They're going to have to understand technology keenly. If it's not social media, if it's not AI, if it's not understanding how different softwares get integrated into their workflows, they're going to be behind. And if you keep looking at every single vertical, every single way that technology will integrate and eventually evolve corporations, is you can clearly see what's happening. My lovely intern right there attends a wonderful university, right? And the problem that a lot of young people are going to be facing in the market, and I saw this back when I was advising as an advisor to both in the Senate Education Committee, was no matter what you teach students, the issue is always going to be it's going to move. Back then, people were asking me, should I teach my student how to code? And I kind of looked at them like, well, if it's like a language, and I'm not a coder, but I kind of understood it as a language. And I was like, well, if it's a language, that means anybody can learn it, and you can become proficient if you keep learning it. But I know if that's the case, then a computer can do it and can actually get it. Then you knew this as an advisor and as a policy person. The rudimentary way to analyze a bill and to break it down is very simple. You can get a computer to do it. The hardest part is actually understanding how the bill will get implemented, how it works, what are people thinking about the bill, who's supporting it, who's against it, why isn't it moving here, there, what are people saying about it? That is all soft skills. That's your ability to go out there and figure it out. That will never be replaced. It will be impossible. But the part about research, understanding like the nuances of certain data points in the bill, technologies can do that. And then advice on the bill, when you're taking it a little bit further, like what your technology does with TexasLege, I think then you have something that makes the bill alive. Now you can interact with a bill in a more meaningful way. And so for you or myself as a staffer, you're going to kind of see that differently. But as a layman, you're going to get to actually see stuff that staffers and other people can understand in a different way, but it's going to be broken down in a way that you can completely understand it the same way. And I think that's a critical thing to that major.
Absolutely. I don't care what most people say. No one can break down a 500-page bill in an hour, right? So that technology is there to do that. But exactly what you said, the soft skills are not going away. There's going to be more and more need for them. I think growing in this time where people are in demand for change, and we're in this industrial revolution, right? We're in this new revolution. So I want to dive into the blockchain thing a little bit further for those who shoot chain, as you call it. That's the first time I heard that one. I love it. So tell me a little bit, is this technology already in existence, or is it something that you are pushing to be built? Is this developed already?
Yeah, so blockchain technology is
Oh, I meant specifically for this purpose.
That's the whole beauty of it.
Okay.
I think right now with technology and how it's evolving and how we're seeing the case use of it, it hasn't been used yet this way, but it can be. And it's already being used in a number of different ways. You look at some governments are using blockchain to utilize it in titles. So there was a couple scammers that were going out there, and they would get people's titles from down like county office, forge it, go get a loan or sell the house. And there was almost no way to verify this. You would have to go through like chain of ownership, right? And this is going through county offices and then actually go through bank records. There's this whole issue that came up because just like if someone just picked it up at a county office and started, defrauding them on your title. Well, a way to capture this and the way to stop this from happening is to put it on chain, put it on blockchain. There was the same thing happened with Georgia, state of Georgia. Georgia's, obviously with the last election, there was all those questions, whatever happened. The state put their voting on chain. So now you have a complete record of the person that voted, where that vote went, who verified it, how it went, and it's all blockchain. So if you do this, I think you're going to create the best case use for governments to be transparent with tax dollars and transparent with what they're doing with their tax dollars. And I think that there's a number of case uses where it's been used enough where it can be transferred to what you do. You do everything from creating a stable coin where it's just converting every tax dollar into a coin that can be looked upon as a chain. Or there's a number of other ways. There's a couple of governments that are doing this in certain different ways, but I don't think anybody's done it in this particular way of trying to figure out how do you track every dollar that's out there.
I know you've got that entrepreneurial spirit and what you're doing, but this is what gave you the idea to do it this
way? It really was looking at how are we continuing to stand by as citizens and seeing tax dollars just being wasted. People are becoming very cynical about what's happening in government and what's happening in terms of like where they see their future and what they feel like is working for them on every single system. And when you're seeing $700 million, $800 million get lost for the eighth time, seventh time an audit is done on a humongous government agency, and you're like, what is happening? Like, who is doing what with whose dollars? And nothing happens. It'll happen the next time. It'll be the eighth one. It'll be the ninth one. It'll be the 10th one. No one's going to stop it. And nothing you can do about it. What are you going to do? Vote out everybody? Okay, we did that. And then it's still not going to happen. It's just going to keep happening. That's a blob. That's a government issue. I saw this in government working as an advisor. There were people that blew money that was nefarious, and there were people that blew money that was non-nefarious at all. And they blew millions of dollars on both ends. But what you have to do is you have to actually look at what is actually happening and why did they blow that money, or why were they inefficient? In what way? Did they need help? Was it the system? Was it consultant? What was it? I literally sat with lawmakers that have told me they've blown out $100 million. Like literally, I literally was like, hey, how did you blow out $100 million in a donation? And a donation for a specific need, like education, where you would not think you would lose that much money and it would go to help people. All number. Nothing came out of it. And the lawmaker will tell you that. And, it's just like, how does it happen? And they'll explain it to you. Half of it was nefarious, half of it was a system, and half of it was just consuming the money. And, I think the more you can integrate technologies that can show things and expose things for what they are, and really what it is not exposing anything. It's just, hey, Right? Everyone can see where everything is going. Sure. So,
Oh, I love that. That's definitely some overlap, and we've got to talk more offline.
yeah.
So, blockchain's kind of a typically misunderstood technology. Can you break it down for our listeners who are more unfamiliar?
So look at it like this as a ledger. When you look at blockchain, think of it like as a ledger that basically can keep a immutable record of a transaction or anything. Um, an interesting case use that I recently became aware of is uh, blockchain in space. You wouldn't think, how did they figure out this blockchain space? I read this guy in Dallas that's doing blockchain space.
I love Texas.
It's a crazy concept, right? And he said the second that somebody came up with it, the second he got like 3 VCs to commit to it.
Sure.
But what it is you think about a satellite up there with thousands of other satellites flying around. And if you can blockchain the movement of that satellite, figure out every single place where it's going and how things are actually operating and moving, you can now figure out paths that you can now keep track of, and you can make sure that satellite doesn't get hit by something, or that there's no damage on something, or even the space station, moving the space station, certainly keeping all of the records of their movements on block, so that people can't, you can say, this is what happened at this time, at this point in time, this point in time. These are all the metrics that came with it at that time. Instead of storing data in a way that we get lost, it's not usable, we throw it in a big Excel sheet, and then maybe we use something. And right now they're starting to use AI, right? LLMs to kind of go through that data and actually figure out what's in it. But now if you have blockchain, it's a whole other way to both store, consume, and then actually use the data. That's the key thing. We can collect data, but how do we use it? And blockchain just offers a different way. And there's layers, right? You could actually layer blockchain on top of AI. You can do this with maximizing energy. That's one of the big key areas. We have this issue, right? Everyone's talking about nuclear power. How do we maximize and make the state grid efficient? Well, again, blockchain, knowing where different energy is going, how it's going, what time of day it is, the heat, everything else, having it on record, and then having an overlap of AI, understanding all that data, and then figuring it out, and then using that data and that technology in the right way, where you can now say, okay, now we can make this whole grid system move in a certain direction where we know these certain things are happening. It becomes a different way to then, again, collect that information, make sure it's not going to be moved in any different way. It's immutable, and you get that use the technology here. I think it's a whole other different way of looking at it.
So then how do you think Texas is uniquely positioned with AI, blockchain, development, policy, and all?
So I think you kind of look at the general philosophy of the state and what's kind of led to the economic miracle, they call it here in Texas. And a lot of it really relates to, I think, regulation, right? And I think encouragement of businesses. So again, going back to sort of the ethos of the mindset behind that AI incentive is to not look at regulation as how do we do things from the top down, but how do we create an environment for businesses to succeed? And then we figure out once they start to succeed and they start to integrate, how do we then regulate? There's obviously going to be mistakes. There's obviously going to be make errors with any technology. I mean, we saw this with social media. We've seen this with data. We've seen this with telecom. We've seen this in every single technology that we've had. Science, space, everything you can think of. How do we then go back and figure out before the cat's out of the bag, before there's too much damage, how do we create the regulations that are going to be the best thing? And I think there's some things that can obviously be very forward thinking about, things like data protection, right? Cybersecurity, privacy, using people's images, things like that. Obviously, IP as a lawyer, you kind of look at different things that come from that. But all in all, when you look at what the technologies are bringing to the marketplace, I think Texas is strategically and generally positioned in a way because of its state regulation and its encouragement of business to really bring in those two industries. You saw that, I think, with what is happening with the Bitcoin miners, right? The Bitcoin miners came to Texas because energy is cheap, right? Land is cheap. You can make big data centers, and Texas is open to innovative ways to create the energy markets for the Bitcoiners to be successful here. And so now we're the capital, right? I think the same thing can happen with AI through this tax incentive. How do we create a market that creates the right structures for businesses to succeed? again, going back to pure technologies or a number of other technologies and that are member companies and the Texas AI Association, if you get the right number of case uses for these technologies, it doesn't matter how many competitors come into the market because you know that your technology is going to deliver an ROI and a solution that's going to help people and help people become better at what they're doing. And it's up to them then to select it and see if that's what they want to then use that technology to see if they can become. I think personally that if the market is left to itself, then you let people succeed through the innovation and integration of that innovation, they will be successful and you will fail if you don't, right? And I think that's a natural churn in market conditions. And so instead of creating top down regulation, I think encouraging and incentivizing innovation is the best way to see how the state can continue to lead. I think you're going to continue to see another miracle happen in the next few years here if Texas continues to stay on the same path of really opening up regulation, opening itself up for business, and looking at regulation as a necessary need for the enablement of business. I think is really
And how do you feel about this incoming administration? Federally, are you optimistic?
so on a number of levels. I mean, I think you have to be a little bit optimistic, just because it is a change. It's like same day, different story, right? It doesn't matter who's going to be in office. We all know that the federal government, pretty much for my entire lifetime, hasn't done a whole lot, and so because of that, uh, at the same time, you know that you have that in the back of your mind. But I think now, again, with technologies and some of the people that are going to be put in critical positions, they have a technology mindset. I mean, I think you look at Elon Musk, right? He's got a technology mindset. He knows how to innovate, to integrate, to make things move faster than things that people say that they never could move fast. And that's a problem with government. I think people have to dream bigger than going in such a snail pace, right? And so I think technology enables that. It makes it a reality rather than talking about it. You look at JD Vance, I think he's had, a history in venture capital and with technology startups and doing work and understanding how technology can, again, create efficiencies where maybe there wasn't, right? And to make a company competitive to technology. I think you look at a number of others that are in the administration that have that background, either through experience or through other lives, right? And having different jobs. I think that can be very optimistic because things like what we're talking about, transparency issues, using blockchain, they're using a podcast, right, to have people start talking about different issues with Doge and whatnot. I think you're going to have to try to do different things. Government has not been working for people for probably the last 40 years. And I think if we can break that through the utilization of technology and really connect people to government, the people that want to get stuff done, they can now they don't have to yell at the TV screen or yell at their neighbor that's on the other side of the political spectrum or yell at the politician, right? They can now work together to solving a solution and everyone can see it. So I think that's the best way to really look at a way the future of politics and technology.
Optimistic. Always good to hear. How about for this upcoming Texas legislative session? Have you had favorable responses to a lot of your proposed ideas?
I think everyone talks about the hype cycles of technology, and AI is not immune to those conversations. And some people will say it's a hype cycle. Yeah, everyone's talking about it. So yeah, so for about a year, we've been working. When I was over at the chamber, the Dallas Regional Chamber, I was working with Capriglio's office. He was sort of doing that year of going out and trying to connect with people both in AI and then just really understand, how is AI being used and integrated in companies. So from that, I think he has a very, open heart to want to hear from his constituents and then everyone across the state to really figure out how is he going to come to do that. And so I think that's a great way to begin a conversation on how do you regulate AI. Now, the flip of it also is how do we incentivize AI? How do we create a mechanism to whereby we encourage integration and innovation? And I think they also have a heart for that and wanting to do it. But businesses want business development, right? We have a lot of startups. Your startup, a number of companies. If you create again the right structure, your business development becomes so much more, not only easier, but it also creates a better product. The more your product gets integrated into different case uses, the better it becomes, and the better it becomes against its competitors. Not only that, you become a better product. But if someone wants to compete and try to offer different things that you can't offer and offer the things that that it would cost you and you'd rather cut it and they would rather include it, well, then now you have market competition. And it wouldn't hurt your business. It would actually encourage your business to grow and encourage the other business to continue to grow to get to the other side of the market. And with that, I think you really create a better business environment for everybody because everyone thinks they can win. And that's really what you want. You don't want the ladder being lifted up by anybody. And creating the right regulations to do that, I think is critical for companies.
Okay. And explain to those who haven't read your op-ed, which you check it out here at the end. Go check out what how the program exactly would work with tax. Yeah.
So the idea kind of is to really look at a current market out there, an analogous market, which is the carbon credit market. Kind of look at what they're doing and flip it on its head. So the carbon credit market, generally speaking, is a market that trades companies that want to pollute for credit that they can purchase, right? And then that credit says, we've taken this many carbon emissions out from the environment or done some sort of sustainability. Well, there's no real way and there's no real system or there's no real trust mechanism for people to really understand what is that credit bringing you. And so the idea with this tax incentive is to really, the cross-the-board tax incentive for companies that are wanting to integrate and wanting to deploy. Well, what you do is you create a little extra incentive for companies that know they want to go chase something in sustainability. They want to create market efficiencies. So let's look at a company like Amazon or even Walmart or any of these other companies that you do tracking. I have a company as a member company in the Texas AI Association called Optum. Optum does the last mile optimization delivery. It's a software company for those companies, for Amazon, Walmart, and every single truck company, I think, in the United States. You think about it, when I was sitting with both CEOs, the dad and the son, about it and talking to them about what did your technology really do? They're founders, they're creators, they've been around for 25 years and work with those mega companies. Well, when you talk about what their companies really offer is efficiencies. Technology creates efficiencies through operations. And then you ask, well, why can't, what do you offer Amazon or Walmart or any of these other companies? You save oil and gas. You save on predictive maintenance, because I can tell you when the truck is going to break or this is going to break. I save them on materials, right? All these things are the same things that we're doing in the carbon credit market. So why don't, instead of doing this in the same way, let's create an AI credit market where we're now utilizing technology to create efficiencies. And we offer that as an extra little incentive to those companies. And then when those companies chase that incentive, we get that credit and we use that on sustainability credit market in this Texas stock exchange. We sell it out, we monetize it. Other company can purchase it. And the same thing happens in the credit card. The same thing that will happen in the credit card market is now happening in the AI credit market with the Texas stock exchange. It's a new way of really creating another market that will digitize the world and will put Texas at the lead of AI in front of every single place in the entire world. Because you're now going to have a state in the United States that is literally saying we are incentivizing companies to come here and integrate AI. You tell me what state is out there, and I'll tell you why it works best if you do an AI incentive in this fashion. First, it's going to be very low cost to the taxpayer. One of the big things, and this working in the legislature, fiscal notes, it's hard to come find the money. I think it's going to be a very low, if any, fiscal note to it, because it's going to be self-sustaining, and the monies are going to be supplied through this selling of that sustainability credit, the AI credit. And so now you've created a market that continues to create itself and to sustain itself. The other part is, as more companies move here, you're going to create market conditions that will create AI technologies that are going to be priced for everyone to get a piece of this revolution that's coming. And now, instead of companies at the top being able to succeed and move the markets on their end, you now have companies that are mid bottom tiered that can survive. Somebody asked I think it was one of these top show hosts or something like that. They mailed in some questions to presidential candidates, and one of the ones was this bakery in Alabama, and they asked her, "Hey, Mr. President, or Madam Vice President, how am I going to survive at a 16-year-old bakery, and it's going to fail because I can't survive inflation?" one presidential candidate says, "Hey, I'm going to save you energy." The other one says, "I'm going to give you a loan." Both of these are not sustainable, and one is not sustainable for loan, and then the other one, she's going to burn through the money and then fail. She's running the same operation. She's just going to survive just a little bit longer. It's just like putting a band-aid on an open bleeding wound. Whereas energy savings ain't coming for a long time. So what do you do? Technology is the answer. If that bakery lady who's been around for 16 years in some rural area in Alabama, go find technology or someone that knew the technology and say, look at my company. Where can I save? Where can I increase my efficiencies? Where can I maybe get on social media and get a national presence? Where's the market for this? What I'm selling. I know there is. I mean, there's 1,000 bakeries out there. So you know you can help the company be somewhat successful so it doesn't fail. But she knew where to go. Now you have her not only have a successful couple, but she's increasing business, she's increasing jobs, she's increasing her happiness, she's increasing her people's happiness. And again, it's market conditions. There's no picking and choosing winners. She was willing to go find the people with, and that's what I think people are missing. They don't know where to go. They don't know where to go find the right people to say, how do I become part of this technology? Your technologies, again, going back to how do I become how do I start a laundry firm? How do I start becoming more efficient at what I'm doing? You know, this is an entrepreneur, you always need extra help. And you always feel like you just need somebody else to help you doing whatever you're doing because you're doing so many different things. And so technologies help us really get beyond those humps that will help me become more efficient. So let's say you're beginning lobbyist or you're beginning small company and you know about government relations. How are you going to keep up with bills? How are you going to know what's going on if you've never done it? But not only that, that's a full-time job. And you probably have 100 other jobs you got to do in your company. So how are you going to keep track of it?
If you're growing, you always need more people, or you're not growing.
Or you're not growing.
So we've definitely made a very compelling case for this. How do business leaders, lawmakers, just any citizen get involved and maybe can work with you here?
Sure. So I think, reach out to us on www.texasaiassociation.org. You can reach out to me personally, call me on my cell. It's on the editorial. And then just really get connected. I think if you're really wanting to figure out how to both do business development and then not only that, if you just want to learn about AI, we had an event at South Lake focusing on both fintech and healthcare AI, and it's a great event. More than 200 people showed up talking about a number of startups also came in, sort of presented. But getting involved in the community and hearing about technologies and understanding, I think, is going to be key in the future because skills are going to change very quickly. Job necessities, what they're going to need in the job market is going to change very quickly in the next 5 to 10 years. Education is going to change every single aspect of how we operate. You're going to start seeing humanoid robots watching the next few years, all with AI, all with LLMs, seeing self-driving cars. We're already seeing them now. We're seeing, Waymo cars running around all over.
One the other day. It was in front of me, and I almost hit the Waymo, and I laughed.
It was a bad driver, right? It was a bad driver.
It was on the, waiting there, and then I thought, oh no. Well,
no wonder it's a bad driver.
Need to fix
that. And it's coming. It's going to come around the end. I think even with the self-driving Tesla cars, they're going to have people drive it. So the first ones are going to be people driving it. Same thing with the humanoid robots. It's going to be people actually doing it, but eventually the technology is going to take over. And we're at that transitionary point, which is like, we know it's coming. We're seeing it coming very soon. Seeing the case uses. It's very nominal right now in some ways, particularly with the humanoid robots. But I think in the next 5 years, it's going to get pretty crazy.
My car has self-driving on it already.
Mine too.
At home, which you're very pleasant too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same. And so when it had that software update, no. And then I
when you gave it for free for a little bit.
It did it. It freaked me out. It's a little bit slower than I like to drive.
It's way safer. It's way safer.
I will say, I honestly, for anyone who knows, I did a podcast a couple weeks ago. We talked about my car getting totaled.
Oh no! What happened?
And
this happened recently?
A few months back.
You're so happy you're smiling about it. On the Capitol grounds.
Yeah, it's a whole tale. I'll tell you after this. But so now I'm like, it'd be better if I was home. So we'll see. I'm excited. I'll see you next year after a good summer. Yeah, everyone who's listening to this heard the tragic tale of my car.
No. Well, it's fine.
I'm alive. Oh, it's all good.
You're in one piece.
I'm all fine. It was a no fault accident. It was my fault.
Oh, good. What's it called?
But I feel like I could talk to you for hours then. Is there?
Oh, I can talk to you forever.
Yes. No, it's been super thought provoking. Anything else that you'd love to share with our listeners today? More about what you're doing, or definitely jump a lot of the blockchain accidents.
I think the other one is education. I think when, coming from my background in education, I think on all levels, you're going to need to educate people about what AI is. So there's not this fear about, oh, it's going to take my job. Oh, it's going to do, X, Y, or Z in a fearful manner. What it really is going to do is going to enhance, I think, everything about people's lives, make them more efficient, make them healthier, make them happier, make them more creative. And I think if we focus on those things, then the technology naturally evolves into those good things. You see it with the deep fakes, all the other things that come with it. There's always going to be a negative side. But I think my times of laughing at memes and connecting with my friends, I just don't have the ability to call every day, but I could send them whatever off the internet or off of a story or whatever, a post. I think that's kind of outweighed a lot of that negative stuff. So I think you kind of have to look at it. And is there two-edged sword, dilemma with technology? Yeah, for sure. You're going to remove certain aspects. I think right now the job market with students coming out, there's an issue. There's ChatGPT right now does beat the vast majority of students that are coming out of college, which is not a good tell sign, but that's a sign of the market problem, right? The market problem is, and this is been happening for years. Every single year that I've been in education, I've seen it from the inside as a school teacher, or as an advisor, or as a business owner. The system has not evolved to meet what kids need to be learning for them to be successful out in the market when they go and get a job. And then the jobs are training the kids because they want immediate return on investment. So they don't have time to train for 2 years. And so what do? You go find small boutiques to train them, and you snatch them. And then the boutique can't survive because the bigger firms are always taking the smaller ones, and then it creates a system. But again, it's market conditions. But how do you create the technologies really that will? It's going to create a higher divide. There's going to be a bigger digital divide, and you're going to see that with large enterprise that have the resources to pay for it, and the lower companies not. But you're going to have to figure out how do you create different pathways for people. As the jobs get eliminated, there's going to be 1,000 more jobs that will get created. And there's going to be other pathways for people to figure out. You got to show them that pathway. They can't just, flail and apply to a million jobs like what the current system is. The current system is terrible. Like, it's a terrible job market, finding a job. It's terrible to get a job as a student. It doesn't make any sense. And so, like, colleges should be obligated to ensure that their students are successful, be it if they're cradle to grave. If you're going to make me pay those loans off, then if I've bought a product, then my product should make sure that I'm going to not have to deal with struggles in the market. I paid for a product, right? Some of us went to SMU, some of us went to TCU. They're very expensive schools. Not saying that they should be a better product than a cheaper school or state school like a UT. It's a great product, right? It's a great school. But I think we've got to figure out ways to utilize technology to both train and educate everybody on every single level on the technology, how it is used, and then how can they use it for the future? Because the future is something that is coming right around the corner. At the same time, that future is going to include a bunch of jobs that are pretty useless in corporations and bureaucratic institutions, but they're going to be eliminated. And they're going to be eliminated and replaced with technology. But you're going to need somebody to manage all that. And that person's going to need to be very educated, very smart, but it's a new skill.
And creativity, and this is where innovation is coming, right? But the thing is, I think people aren't prepared for it. Even in high school, I really do think workforce development is one of the biggest things we can just prepare kids for in high school, educating them on AI tools early. If you, right, that's the easiest, best way to get it in the system. That it comes with a lot of training. So that, I think, is probably the number one thing I
But the issue is, like, for example, like a regent reach out to me, one of these regents in Mona's, he's a regent of the community colleges state. And then so she was like, hey, all this community colleges, they rock it. And I was like, okay, so you have 4-year institutions, and I'm working with SMU and UT, um, and Dallas Baptist. Dallas Baptist in the Career Center, SMU with that 88K Hub, that semiconductor, that's a big thing, right? And then McTinney, we're going to do something. So when you look at what the universities are really trying to do, is they're trying to figure out how do they get their students to commercialize companies, because they know that their product is not getting them anything. They're like, oh crap, the kids aren't getting jobs. Let's just figure out how to get them to do startups. So all of them are like, hey, then go get anybody to come here that wants to do anything. We'll take an equity piece. It's very small though. It's like a 3% equity cut, but we'll give them everything. We'll give them all the backing of the university, all the professors and the research, the validation. We can do studies, all this stuff. We'll go get the funding, but we just want companies to come through. The real reason for this is to employ their students. That's the problem. The kids are not getting jobs. So you kind of look at some of these universities, particularly SMU. SMU is one of the only schools, I think it is the only school in the United States with 3 entrepreneurship centers. They all have different focus areas and sort of what they're trying to give to their students. And I think SMU, many schools, I graduated from this, but they do put a lot of resources into their students being successful because they do have a lot of resources. One of the things, so when I was in law school, okay, it was the worst time to be a lawyer. The university, the law school, it was the recession, 2009. Yeah, absolutely terrible to be in tight. What the university at the law school did was they went out and they formed partnerships and they said, look, we'll pay for our student salaries for a semester. So for an entire semester, they were willing to pay for your salary, and the law firm got to use the student for free.
So what types of programs are universities using now to incentivize entrepreneurship and startups?
So they're looking at how do they get ideas to market. And so there's a number of ways you do it. There's a number of ways you try to get it internally through students wanting to figure out, hey, can I start a company before I leave? Can I use the resources that I have in my backyard to really use this technology and create something new, or to create something that's out there and modify it to make sure it's successful?
So what programs are some of these universities doing to encourage entrepreneurship with their students?
So one of the ways is internally they're trying to incentivize and encourage students to create startups that they can grow internally and kind of go through their system and vet them and support them, right, with the infrastructure that is sort of internal. The other way is to have startups that are outside of the university that sort of align with different departments that are trying to create either research projects or figure out different technology. For example, SME right now has one of 2 super pods, NVIDIA super pods, meaning companies can come in, use those super pods to see how those technologies can be applied in different aspects of their case use, data, AI, or different areas, right? From that, the university can do research, and then you can spin off a company, because now you know how to use this technology in an efficient and effective way that can help companies become successful. You do this with these humongous mega Fortune 500s that are all over DFW, right? You could also figure out ways where smaller companies like yourself that are doing interesting work in areas where if you get the right business pipelines, that you can just literally get into a flood of market. Just think about if you could get into every lobby firm in different states, or you had the access to get in front and center in all of them, and you can all at the same time, they can see your technology, utilize your technology, and then choose whether or not they want to purchase and utilize their technology. And think about if there was a marketplace like that. So I think creating the mechanisms for that is key.
So you lived in California for how long now?
It was off and on for about 12 years. It was in between time I was a film producer and then the time that I was working as an advisor at the Senate. I just kept going back between California and Texas.
And what would you say the biggest differences you've seen in San Francisco, Silicon Valley area, and now this booming tech scene we have here in Texas?
We got to look at both states. I mean, California is a beautiful state. It's a wonderful state, great people, great food, international, cosmopolitan, metropolitan, everything you can say that's great about it. Now, some of the issues that have sort of taken over, and we'll look at San Francisco in particular, because I lived in the heart of it. I lived in Market and 8th Street, and then in LA, I lived all over Long Beach, Reseda, Encino, West Hollywood, Beverly Hills. Spent a lot of time all over the area and just sort of know it pretty well. And when you let's look at San Francisco in particular. In San Francisco, where I lived in Market and 8th, right at Trinity Plaza Apartments, which is still there. When I walked down to the Embarcadero, every single day, I saw the same people that you will see there today. Homeless people, people shooting up drugs, people that are, just out there. There was a difference, though, in the culture in San Francisco in 2007. What I can tell you in 2007 was San Francisco was not a tech city. San Francisco was closer to the summer of love in the 1960s and 1970s than it was a tech city. When I walked every day, I noticed smiles. I noticed people making eye contact. All those homeless people, even the people shooting up drugs, everybody looked at you, made eye contact, smiled. Then eventually it became, hey, how's it going? Hey, hope you have a good day. Hey, I hope you're having a good day, brother. Hope you're having a great day. Then it turned into me asking, hey, I'm going to go run at that McDonald's. Do you want anything? And the melting smile of someone saying, thank you for treating me like a human being. And then being like, no, don't worry about it. And you go get that, whatever you're going to go eat. What was different in San Francisco was there was a community of culture. There was a community of care. The people that lived there had lived there for 30, 40 years. Mm-hmm. So because tech hadn't entered in and pushed them out, and not just pushed them out, they left. A lot of them left. They made a lot of money selling those houses. And the city changed because of what was going down in Palo Alto and was moving slowly and creeping up into the San Francisco. So when I lived there, probably the year afterwards, I'm going to say it was 2010 or 11, around there when I was 07, Uber moved there. And then Twitter moved right there. And then Facebook started to have a big presence. Salesforce, all the big companies that you see now started to move into the actual city of San Francisco. And then what happened is you had a tech center and you had a bunch of people that were coming in from everywhere. And most of these people were coming from the best colleges in America. And the best colleges in America are on the East Coast and West Coast. And what was happening was...
I beg to differ. Alabama.
Harvard,
Harvard of the South. Harvard of the South. I'm telling you, that is what I...
The South has football, okay? We all know that. I will put the South on football against anybody else. There's no competition. But let's look at academics.
but the best schools besides Alabama, we're moving. Okay, go on.
But what you had was, and I noticed this walking down Market Street, I started to see ads for the Wharton School of Business. I started to see ads for East Coast MBA programs. But I'm in one of the best, smartest places on planet Earth, right? In America. There's Berkeley, there's all sorts of great schools in the Bay Area. But I'm seeing School of Wharton. Well, what I started to notice was the East Coast culture started to come into the West Coast, which is a completely different culture. I spent a lot of time in New York. New Yorkers are brash, they curse. Nobody will hit each other, though. Nobody's going to have a fight. Yeah, they will yell, they will scream, they'll curse. But no, West Coasters take everything literal. You say any of that in front of them, they will take it like really personal. Where in New York, you can say to anybody on the street and it's fine. No one's going to take it personal. But in San Francisco, they take it personal. So what was happening was the East Coast people were coming in and slowly moving into the city. Well, those kids, guys and girls, were making a lot of money, but they were living in San Francisco. So, and they also brought in the party culture. That San Francisco and the Bay Area does not have a party scene. It's quiet. People do not go out at late night. It's not a club scene. But the East Coasters came, and they started saying, I don't want to work in the East Coast in law and business. I want to go work at Netflix and at Facebook where I'm getting paid way more, have way more stock options, and I have a very cushy job. And so that changed the culture of the Bay Area slowly since about 2012 over time. And then what happened was it brought the East Coast culture to the West Coast. So those same homeless people on that same street that had been coddled and loved and cherished, even though they were homeless, but it gave them a sense of dignity and people cared about them every day. It changed from that to East Coasters who just go to work. And it's just this New York. You just got to go. You move. You fast. You don't stop and say hi. You move. You got to go. You got to get to work.
So you think it changed it for the worse?
Well, I think you look at it from any other city. Yeah, I live in Dallas. It's changed a lot. You live in Austin. It's completely changed massively. Better for worse is always a hard question. I think COVID and certain things damaged those cities in ways where it exposed a lot of the failing systems of, again, government, of, again, a bureaucratic system that wasn't meeting the needs of the people. And then you saw that through homelessness, through extensive crime that's not controllable in those cities right now. And it's not saying that, Dallas Fort Worth don't have crime. They do. And all these Texas cities do now. When I remember Austin did not have crime at the level it does now. There's bad things that happen with growth, and the same thing happened in California. But there's a way to control the bad things that I think California did not do a great job at doing. And again, going back to market conditions, you're seeing it clearly by how many people are moving out of the state and the demographics of who can stay in that state. The only people that can really survive are people with ample amount of resources that can weather the taxes, weather the cost of living, weather what it costs to actually just survive in California. And a lot of those people are moving to Alabama and Texas.
Now, what do you think about that same thing happening in Austin and Texas? We've obviously had more people move here than ever. Actually, in your neck of the woods, in North Texas, in the Dallas metropolitan area. So, how do you see that impacting and changing the culture and safety and everything in those cities?
It's gonna make everything bigger. There's obviously gonna bring problems when you have growth because you don't have a lot of the infrastructure and resources that are there that are needed to actually address some of those needs. And the government's a little bit behind, obviously, on meeting needs, so it's going to play catch up for a little while as growth happens. You're obviously starting to see expenses increase in these cities as resources become scarcer, density is starting to go up. You're having a lot of the problems that people don't want to, that we're trying to escape from those cities. Traffic is terrible. A lot of these cities. But again, I think you can utilize technology to solve a lot of these things. You saw, I don't know, why companies are going back from remote work to in office requirements. I think that there was greater efficiencies to people's lives when you were at remote work. Obviously, I think maybe certain professions or certain things you allow it, or certain cultures, and I think those are up to the companies to make. But making blanket statements, I think either way, or trying the culture to. And I think you also create better efficiencies with just quality of life. I mean, you think about spending hours, which I have in Austin traffic, going very short distances, and how it makes you feel, and the buildup, right? The buildup of the stress throughout the day and everything else. Just layering it with something else, with like trying to get to home or trying to get a meal, or trying to get a reservation or whatever at a restaurant. All those things build up, and it makes that place either likable or unlikable, right? So if you came here for certain things, you're trying to escape in those cities like LA, New York, they're here. Like those problems are here. I think that when it comes down to meeting the needs, and then sort of you look at economic direction of both the East and West Coast versus here, and why is that happening? A lot of that is regulation, and a lot of that is market conditions. I think a lot of people will still live in California, and I think you've seen that in the last few years, the uptick in people actually moving back to California. It's because it's got great weather, it's got great people, great everything, right? It's a beautiful state. Yeah. So it's not as though people will continue to just constantly move to Texas. If it's too expensive, if it doesn't meet the needs of the market, people will go somewhere else, try somewhere different. And you've seen that. There's been people that have tried Californians who've tried Texas out and moved right back, or moved to a different part of the country, Florida or where else, to see what else is greener. So I think that's a great thing because you offer options for people. But again, you're not going to take away, I think, even with all that crime and degradation, I don't think you'll take away the success and the history and the continued future success of like integration of technology, startups, how it evolves from San Francisco to the Bay Area. You're kind of seeing that with the entertainment industry in California. It's being pushed again across the country, and different states are taking big chunks. Everyone from Georgia to Texas to North Carolina, Tennessee, they're all taking big chunks of Hollywood out because again, the cost, regulation, everything that comes in California. But everybody wants to live in California. It's beautiful, nice hills. The weather's great. So you're gonna always have something. But Texas and a number of other states are going to be competitive, I think. Problems.
For sure. Well, last question. What's serious one? Are robots taking taking that up? Like, there's definitely, I feel like 90% of people I talk to, 95, are super comfortable with AI, but there's a 5% who never used it.
Oh,
They're scared of it. So, what do you tell those people?
I don't think robots are smart enough to take over yet, but they will, and it will be a different world. But we're going to live in some sort of harmony. You got to think about balance and how technologies tend to balance out. Certain aspects of society will change, of course, right? I don't have kids, but I have friends that have kids, and they go and talk to them and ask them about social media, and they would rather spend time on cell phones than talk to their parents, right? That was a different time. My parents forced me to sit around a meal and talk to them about my day and what was going on in my life. It, people still need to connect. People still need to communicate. There's different ways of doing it, and technology has changed that. Are we going to go back? No. It's like eating from the fruit of garden of good and evil, or going to law school. Yeah, both of those things will just change your mind completely, make you go crazy. So when you think about it, you no longer see the world the same way, and that's going to be the same thing with technology. Is it going to be better or worse? I think in the last, other than government not working for us for the last 50 years, technology's improved a lot of things, and it's improved a lot of our lifestyles and a lot of instant things that we just never thought we could have. You go back centuries ago, right, into ancient times, and even the greatest king is not living in the same way the average person is living right now in the modern world. You can go to countries that are rapidly changing, like India or China, integrating technologies, and you can see a hyper advanced electronic car next to a rickshaw, and that they're stuck in the 1950s on one end, and then you're 2025 on the other end. And when you see that, you can really see that the future is right around the corner, but we're not all there. It's going to take a lot of time, and that growth is going to be both painful, changing, and a lot of cool things are going to happen. So I think when you look at, are the robots going to take over? Probably, but they already have. I mean, we are addicted to phones.
We have a little robot in our pocket at all times.
We have self-driving cars. We can order anything. I could order stuff on Amazon right now during this conversation. So you think about how quickly technology has integrated into all aspects of our lives, and how's society going to change? It's going to change, but it's always changed. It's just happening quicker.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. You mean by the robots taking over, like DoorDash. So that's a little bit more heartwarming. So it has been so great having you on the show, and I would love to, have you shout yourself out, how people can find you. I know you mentioned your website, but if anyone wants to get in touch with you or become a member of the
they can reach out, call me, text me on my cell, 404-625-6076, or they can email me, Ben Bhatti, BNBHATTI, at TexasAIAssociation.org.
You are not holding back there. Phone number, that is bold. Love it.
Vote up.
Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks, Brian.